So welcome to Module 1 of Mastercam training. In this module, we're going to focus on the basics, learning to navigate Mastercam, understanding what the toolbars are, the contents of them, as well as the layout of other ribbons and our different menus. So to start with, what you're seeing here on the big black area, that's your workspace. This area is where our parts will be displayed, and we can see all of the work going on. In the lower left corner, you have your world gnomon. Gnomon is a term for the 3-axis, the Cartesian coordinate icon. We can zoom in and out. This will be our theoretical 0 for everything done here on out. And the basic layout you're going to see with Mastercam, across the top, we have the toolbar. Now at the very upper left-hand corner, we have our quick access toolbar. You have your program level commands as far as opening files, saving files, printing, any type of file storage and saving. So the first toolbar we have is our file. So you're going to see this will bring up a menu. There's a lot of features and options in Mastercam, and this training series is going to focus on what you will need to know in order to successfully make parts here at APL. So just as many CAD softwares, you have your standard commands. You will find new, open. One thing unique to Mastercam that will be utilized is merge. That allows us to import a different solid model or import a different file into the work we have going on. If you just drop and drag a solid model into the workspace you have, it's going to want to start a new file. It's going to want to get rid of your solid. So we use merge to add. This can commonly be used when doing multiple operations. Obviously, save as, print, all that. The last two will be used now. Configuration. So the configuration is something to be familiar with. What you'll see is this menu that pops up, and this is basically all of our settings. How we want Mastercam to operate, kind of little preferences for various different things. You'll also see here we can change from metric to inch configuration. For our purposes, we'll leave it in inch. And Mastercam is very intuitive. So essentially, if you want to know what something does or really what's contained in it, if you highlight it, everything's self-explanatory. We go next to our CAD. These are all basically preferences and chaining, which is a big portion of what we will do. You have different options. We have it set default, kind of a standard, and you can share a configuration with someone else. You can load it in from their Mastercam. What you'll have is fairly efficient and useful. As you'll see, when we go to colors, this is where you'll be able to set for your chains, your wireframes, background, solid colors, a plethora of different things. So if you want something to have a certain color, this is where you can set that. And now, files, one thing you'll want to know how to do is your autosave. I come in and enable mine. I set it for 5 minutes. This way, when you're working, if you happen to step away, you're really deep into a program, it'll save it. You won't have to worry about starting all over again if your computer crashes or you accidentally close it out. So the next important thing I want to touch on is selection. So as we're in Mastercam, especially working with wireframes and chains, or models for that matter, to surfaces, we have the ability to choose different cursor selection types. So Mastercam uses an auto cursor uh, type selection. All of these different elements, endpoint, arc center, intersection, midpoint, quadrant, tangent, nearest, these all allow our cursor to snap to various points on the model or a chain. If you want to draw a line or start from the middle of a chain, that's easy to do. We have midpoint. The rest of them, it's all just preferences, and you really have to go through, as you're using Mastercam, and you may say, hey, I want something done a little differently. So at that point, you can come in and adjust something, see how it looks, move it around, whatnot. Tool path manager and tool paths. It's more preferences, and this will have to do somewhat with how it posts out, what your toolpath menu looks like, and some of your contents in your NC. So moving on from there, go back to File, and then Options. So Options, this allows us to customize our toolbar. I really prefer, personally, the standard default Mastercam toolbar. And that way, when you get a new version of Mastercam, there's really not much to change. We can change the layout with the contents in each menu or each tab individually. We can pick solids. We can add or remove anything we want. So it's really customizable. We won't spend a lot of time on this, but just to understand it's there and to know what it does. So now as we move into where we're going to be 99% of the time, right here in our work area, the layout will start in the upper left-hand corner. We've covered our quick tabs. Now these are all of our basically drop downs or our toolbars. So our home toolbar, what you'll see is a few basic things. This isn't used a lot, but here on the clipboard, you can copy and paste various elements. This can be features, it can be different components of our model, of our program, and copy image. That's a screenshot. Sometimes this is helpful when you're working and you want to be able to show somebody something. If you got to send an email and explain a feature, you have a visual aid. Next to that, we can have all our color layouts. So if you want to modify colors of solids, of surfaces, material appearance, wireframe colors, the thickness of the wireframe, that can all be done there. Now, next we have in the organized section, we have layers. And there'll be a whole nother video on levels or layers that will include planes as well. This is where if I had multiple levels, I could change from a level right in this area. Basically, a few other selections here. If you have your undo, delete, a lot of that can be done with keys on the keyboard. And display, you can hide and unhide components, similar to SolidWorks or any other CAD program. And also, you have your analyze entity and analyze distance. This is a measuring tool. A lot of these can also be accessed by right-clicking on the mouse, which most operators Mastercam prefer, and I do as well. Here you can see we have all of our line styles. We have colors, material settings. We can actually open up our levels. Lots of things we can do. If we click our levels tab, I don't have any levels to show yet because we have no model, but that's where you would be able to access that, as well as a quick way to change your views. A few other things here, not real used very much. It's mainly in analyzing to understand dimensions and lengths of features and whatnot. And obviously add-ins or commands used very rarely in our application here at APL. So now getting into the meat and potatoes of the display here. Wireframe tab. So we will touch more on this in the drafting video when we do basic sketching. It's similar to AutoCAD or SolidWorks, so nothing too big there, but all of your wireframe sketching tools and whatnot are contained here. Next tab is surfaces. This is where you can create a solid model from a wire chain geometry. Occasionally we do this. You can make patches. You have an open feature that you don't want your tool to go around. To save time, tools can travel over holes, or if you want to avoid them, if you need a surface to select for avoidance, you can add from here. The next tab is solids. Now here you will use this more often doing fixtures and soft jaws. We have tools such as impression where we can create a negative impression or negative mold of a solid part off of a wireframe. A very good tool for soft jaws, which will be a separate video in itself. Model prep. This allows us to do a few different things to the model. Most commonly is align to plane or align to face. We import a model because of how a customer or engineer designed the part. It's not sitting in the orientation we want. This is a really easy way to reorient it or to move a feature in relation to another. So one of the features here contained in this. Drafting. Now this is what we would refer to as annotation in SolidWorks. This is the drop-down tab where we'll be able to get a lot of our tools to apply dimensions. Anything from angular, horizontal, smart dimension, ordinate, coordinate points to our work WCS and various other annotations, and from most like model-based definition. Now the transform tab, this is a big one, and there's a whole separate video just on this. Essentially in the transform tab, transform is a way to move or manipulate our solid model. Real common is dynamic. This allows us to not only move our model in linear ways, in linear directions. It allows us to rotate the part, to rotate it between snap points, to move it, rotate basically in any conceivable way you want. You also will allow you to move it to 0 points quicker. We'll touch on that in the transform video. See your standard translate. This is linear. And in most of these, you can also have a copy function. Rotate, project, move to origin, mirror, an array, which is like kind of it's like a nesting type. It'll allow you to copy the parts in a grid. The machine tab. This running a machine such as a lathe or a router, you won't really adjust this much. This basically sets the definition of the machine that you're programming for. Um, you'll see now it's defaults, but this is where and then your control definition, machine definition. This is also where your post processors will be set. You'll see simulator. This will be verify and backplot. These are all tools used, with Toolpass to verify and check the motion of the tool. Generate is for posting your program, and we have various other options. View, very important. Here we can get a little more of our display control, so we can, as now we see the axis, the X, Y, and Z axis. I can deactivate it, can activate it. I can show our gnomon. There'll be a whole video on gnomon, which will be in a transform video. That's our axis tool, or we can set origins. So you have the ability to toggle all the views. With our solids, we can toggle wireframes, shaded. We also can change our orientation that we're looking at. Many various things that can be done. So moving on, the last tab, the big one, is Toolpath. So once we get into programming, when we have our solids, we have them transformed, we have them in place, there'll be videos broken down onto the different types of toolpaths, specifically 2D, 3D, multi-axis, working with stock models and stock displays, which is helpful. And probing. Now, some of the machines have probes. I believe no one has the probe option enabled, but most machines, you can control the probe on there. We're not big on probing, writing probe programs or probe paths, but these are all options you'll find. You can see these all expand. And nice thing with Mastercam, when it comes to toolpaths, or let's say we'll go back to surfaces and flat boundary, if you hover over something and let the cursor sit for 2 seconds, it will display, it'll give you a brief description of what it does. So we go to trim curves, obviously trims the surface to the selected lines, arcs, splines, and surfaces. So it will give you a brief explanation. It may help you if you're not sure what something does. You hover over it, it'll give you an indication. Same thing here with the toolpaths. So with that, we're in 3D OptiRough. Machine very large depths of cuts with bidirectional cutting strategies. It's like an adaptive toolpath. So anything on here creates toolpath with measuring probe on machine tool to determine offset. So it will basically give you a brief little description so you may understand what it's for. So moving on, here in the center on the left, we have our dialog box. This dialog box is directly related to our sub tabs here. So we have toolpaths, solids, planes, levels, and a recent function, which basically is a quick route to anything you've done within the last 10 steps. Toolpaths, everything related to the paths and the tools we'll be applying to our part will be located here, and all the functions associated with it. Selecting operations, regeneration of operations when they get what is called dirty. We can lock them out, toggle, posting, verification. Here we have backplots and verify, simulator options, hosting, uh, lots of different things, different what it will display. Uh, and once again, you hover over it, it will tell you exactly what each thing does. We'll be getting more into depth in this when we get into toolpaths. Solids menu, once you have a solid model in here, it depending on the type of file, it will display a solid, or if you create any, it's like having a history bar, what you know on SolidWorks. It'll display the different features, different entities in that solid. Planes is a big one. There is a whole video module just on planes and levels. For 3-axis machining, all the planes we would really conceivably need are already here. Top, front, right, left, bottom, ISO. So whatever we select, that's the work coordinate system that we're programming to. Levels. So levels is also referred to as layers in many drafting programs. It's essentially a way to organize different features of your solids. We can assign different parts of our model and to different levels. That way we can activate them, deactivate them. So not only we wouldn't see them, but changes wouldn't apply to them. And then recent functions we talked about. The other thing to touch on here up in the top right, and this can be moved around if you would like, but is our auto cursor menu. So this allows us, well, we have auto cursor enabled with our settings. Anything that we come near, it'll apply those preferences. As we mentioned, all of these. We have very different selection methods, especially when we're going to be working with chains or solids. So chain, window, polygon, single, vector, all of that. I will be making a small, short 10-minute module on auto cursor just to understand. As well as here on the side, we have some quick bar ribbons, various different things, selection tools. For the basics of for solids and wireframes, all your selection tools will be here. Most of the displays of Mastercam. Again, we just have basically other ways to do things that we can do here in the View tab. We have quick buttons here to click. We can change our planes down here. So there's a lot of things in Mastercam probably won't particularly apply to what we're doing here at APL as far as our programming and machining, but it's good to know what they do. And that in itself is a quick rundown of basically how to navigate Mastercam, what you will find, where things are located. Once again, it's all customizable. You can go into your options menu. Remember, go file, options. And as you go down through, customize your ribbon, the menus, other options. The sky is the limit with this as far as preferences. Even here, we can add 100 different tabs, quick buttons. This concludes Module 1, the basics, navigating Mastercam. Thank you.